Let's get right into it. Number 9. Stonehenge builders came from Wales. Scientists just discovered the Stonehenge builders were ancient road trippers from Wales. These people traveled 180 miles just to stack rocks. This was 40 years ago, when traveling meant dodging wolves and hoping you don't die. How'd they figure this out? By studying burned bones at Stonehenge. When you eat food, your bones absorb something called strontium. Well, strontium is different from Stonehenge strontium. It's like prehistoric fingerprinting. About 40% of people buried at Stonehenge spent their last decade in Wales. And they didn't just bring themselves. They dragged 4-ton blue stones from Welsh mountains all the way to Stonehenge. Imagine moving today, but instead of renting a truck, you drag your couch 180 miles on foot. These bones were carefully buried in special pits. These were fancy funeral-type burials for important people. So these Welsh folks weren't just visitors. They were the architects. Number 8. The Antikythera mechanis. Divers found a 20-year-old computer at the bottom of the sea. Not a laptop, an ancient Greek device made of bronze gears that shouldn't exist. Scientists discovered this thing in 1901, broken into 82 corroded pieces. Looked like underwater junk. But in 2021, X-ray machines revealed its secrets. This machine could predict where planets would be centuries ahead. It knew when eclipses would happen, all with gears inside, gears working like a tiny metal universe. This technology was impossible for its time. Nothing like it appeared again. For 400 years, finding this is like discovering an iPhone in Julius Caesar's pocket. The machine tracked the moon's wonky orbit better than some modern watches. Scientists found microscopic inscriptions all over it. Ancient instruction manuals carved into metal so small, you need magnification to read them. The Greeks who built this weren't just smart, they were showing off. They created something so advanced, we're still figuring out how it works. This wasn't theory, this was practical astronomy in your pocket. 0 years before anyone else could even dream of it. Number 7. Ötzi the Iceman's final hours. Imagine being so unlucky that you die on a mountain, but so lucky that your corpse becomes one of the most important scientific discoveries ever. That's what happened to Ötzi the Iceman, a guy who died 300 years ago in the Alps. Scientists recently figured out exactly what this ancient dude was doing in his final hours. And they did it by looking at something super weird. The pollen in his stomach. Those tiny bits of pollen were like breadcrumbs, showing exactly where he went before he died. In just 33 hours, this guy went on quite the adventure. He started up high in the mountains, around 80 feet up. Then, for some reason, he decided to go down into the valleys. But something made him run back up into the freezing peaks. Scientists think he was running from something or someone. He was climbing thousands of feet in altitude in just hours. That's like running up and down a skyscraper, except you're also trying not to freeze to death. We know exactly what killed him. An arrow to the back. So this wasn't just some guy who got lost in the mountains. He was murdered, and his last meal was still digesting when it happened. Number 6. Neanderthal cave art, finally authenticated. Imagine walking into a dark cave in Spain and seeing something that would change everything we thought we knew about our ancient cousins. Deep red lines and weird symbols cover the walls, hidden away for over 650 years. But these weren't made by humans. These were made by Neanderthals. You know, those primitive cavemen we always joke about. Well, turns out they were way more sophisticated than we thought. Scientists use this really clever dating method that looks at uranium decay in the cave walls. It's like nature's own timestamp. And it doesn't lie. These paintings are at least 650 years old. That's 20 years before modern humans even showed up in Europe. Now, this isn't just some random scribbling. We're talking about complex patterns, ladder-like shapes and symbols that actually meant something. For years, scientists were so sure Neanderthals couldn't make art that they didn't even bother checking how old these paintings really were. This discovery is forcing us to completely rewrite our family history. These primitive Neanderthals weren't just surviving, they were creating, they were thinking, they were expressing themselves through art. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them. Number 5. King Tut's death by malaria and broken leg. Everyone thought King Tut was murdered, poisoned by enemies, killed in some palace plot. The truth? Way more tragic and totally random. Scientists ran DNA tests and CT scans on his 300-year-old mummy in 2010. This teenage pharaoh wasn't assassinated. He just had terrible luck and worse genetics. His parents were brother and sister. Ancient Egyptian royalty kept it way too close to home. This left Tut with serious birth defects, including a clubfoot that made walking painful. But that's not what killed him. What got him was a deadly combo. He broke his leg, probably from a bad fall. Then malaria moved in for the kill. Today, you'd get a cast and some pills. Back then, a broken leg was an open invitation for every infection in Egypt, and those Nile mosquitoes weren't messing around. Picture this teenage king, limping around with a busted leg, burning with fever, trying to run an empire. Scientists found malaria parasites still chilling in his mummy after 30 years. The world's oldest evidence of a really bad week. Number 4. The Nazca Lines hidden water map. You're ancient Peruvian. It's scorching hot. You're dying of thirst. Google Maps is 20 years away. What do? Well, apparently you draw massive pictures in the desert. For a long time, everyone assumed these drawings were meant for aliens. Or maybe just really bored artists with way too much free time. But in 2016, scientists finally cracked it. These weren't just random doodles. They were basically Ancient X marks the spot maps for underground water, using satellite imagery. Researchers found that these massive lines lined up perfectly with underground aquifers. You're living in one of the driest places on Earth. Water is more precious than gold. So you create the world's biggest treasure map. These weren't just practical markers. They were also used in desperate water rituals. Imagine hundreds of people walking these massive patterns, praying for water during severe droughts, while standing right above it. It's like these ancient people had X-ray vision to see what was beneath the desert. Number 3. Dead Sea Scrolls Invisible Passages. So picture this. You've got these ancient scrolls that people have been studying for decades, thinking they know everything about them. But then in 2020, scientists come along with this fancy light technology, and suddenly there's secret writing everywhere. These are the Dead Sea Scrolls, some of the oldest biblical manuscripts we've ever found. For years, scholars looked at these fragments and saw nothing but blank space. But then they pointed this multispectral imaging device at them. Think of it like Instagram filters on steroids. Suddenly, invisible text starts showing up like some kind of ancient invisible ink trick. It's like these ancient writers were playing a 20-year-long game of hide and seek, and we finally found them. They found a super detailed temple calendar that shows how ancient temples ran their schedules. These guys weren't just throwing darts at a wall to pick ceremony dates. They had this whole system worked out with astronomy and math. Some of these newly discovered passages don't match up with any biblical text we know about. It's like finding a deleted scene from your favorite movie that changes the whole plot. And it's basically rewriting everything we thought we knew about ancient Jewish history. Number 2. The Black Death's true origin scientists digging in Kyrgyzstan found some old teeth and accidentally solved history's deadliest mystery. These weren't random teeth. They belonged to plague victims from 1338. Inside those ancient molars was DNA from the exact plague strain that would later kill half of Europe. For centuries, nobody knew where the Black Death started. Well, the mystery is finally solved. It all began in tiny Kyrgyzstan, right on the Silk Road. The graves near Lake Issyk-Kul had tombstones that literally said, "died of pestilence." Pretty specific for medieval times. The DNA in these teeth is like the great-grandfather of all plague bacteria that terrorized Europe. Scientists found patient 0 for history's worst pandemic. Some traitor probably caught the plague here and carried it along the Silk Road. This person had no clue they were basically a walking biological weapon. The Silk Road connected the whole ancient world. Great for business, terrible for containing deadly diseases. Instead of delivering silk and spices, they accidentally shipped the apocalypse. Number 1. The Babylonian math tablet that changed history. Imagine you're an archaeologist in the early 1900s, and you find this weird clay tablet covered in numbers. You think it's just some ancient homework assignment, maybe a receipt for grain or something boring like that. But turns out you're holding proof that the Babylonians invented trigonometry 500 years before the Greeks. This tablet, called Plimpton 322, is basically the world's oldest math textbook. But these guys weren't using angles or circles like we do today. They had their own system using exact ratios. Yeah, people from 700 years ago were doing math with scary precision. No calculators, no computers. Not even paper, just wet clay and a stick, and they were crushing it. This wasn't just some theoretical stuff either. They used this math to build massive temples and design entire cities.